Connection. All right, live everywhere. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Brooke Goldner from Goodbye Lupus, and I'm coming to you live as I do every Wednesday to help you with your health, your longevity, your quality of life, your happiness, any way I can be of service. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today before we get started with the Q&A is an issue that comes up so many times every day that I felt like I need to dedicate a little time and space for this, for those of you who are struggling with this issue. And it's the issue around weight and specifically BMI, body mass index. So there's been a lot of new research recently showing how the BMI is not useful. As I've been saying, and my husband Thomas Tadlock has been saying for years, it is not useful when it comes to determining your health for reasons I'm about to teach you about. The studies now are showing that same thing. So body mass index was created as a tool for researchers who were trying to look at statistics of sizes of people around the world. It was never meant to be used as a medical tool, but it was adopted because it's a quick and dirty way to try to estimate somebody's weight and how healthy they might be. It's just not been very effective, and here's why. So body mass index, the way we determine that, it's simply your weight divided by your height squared. The problem is your weight is made of many things, right? Your weight is not just your body fat, but it's going to be your muscles, your bones, your organs, food, water. There's so many other things involved in your weight. And so what ends up happening is the BMI assumes that your weight is basically mostly from fat. And so if your BMI is high, you're too fat. But if it's low, then it's also considered abnormal, and people will worry that there's something wrong with them if their BMI is low compared to the normal range. There's been a lot of problems with this. Imagine it this way. If you are a bodybuilder, like my husband, Thomas Tadlock, he's a guy who builds a lot of muscle, but he eats 100% plant-based diet. He drinks his smoothies every day, drinks a gallon of water every day. But according to BMI, it's high, but he doesn't have much body fat, and he's extremely healthy. But his weight is not from fat. His weight is from the density and weight of his muscle tissue, right? So anyway, let me tell you about these cases, and I wrote down some notes here so I'll get the numbers right. There's a new study that's about to be published where they were finding that the BMI actually misses a lot of cases of obesity. So when they looked at BMI only, and they looked at 10,000 cases of adults collected from 2011 to 2018, and they found out of the 10,000 cases, according to BMI alone, 36% of people had obesity. 36. Now, when they use different measures for obesity, actually looking at the body fat percentage. So the way we can look at body fat percentage, you can't use those tools like in your nutritionist office or at the gym, you put your hands on there and it gives you an estimate. Those don't work effectively. If you have lotion on, if your hands are wet, if you're hydrated, it'll give you abnormal measurements. So don't count on those. We're talking about body fat measurements looked at by a DEXA scan or an MRI, something where we can actually see and measure how much fat you have, right? So when they actually looked at the fat percentage of these same people, they found 74% of them had obesity. So even though only 34% had an abnormal BMI, meaning that their BMI indicated that they were too fat, according to the scans that showed how fat they were on the inside, 74% were actually obese. So just because your doctor says your BMI is normal, it does not mean you're not obese. In fact, you might have high risk of disease and death because you actually have a high amount of body fat in spite of your weight. So that was one issue. So what they were looking at is how do you better measure people's obesity level, how much fat they have, because obesity, even if it's internalized, even if you're thin or normal on the outside, can lead to heart attacks, diabetes, other issues, right? So what they looked at was, one, actual body fat, looking at a DEXA scan. Two is how much of it is visceral fat. So basically, you can have fat maybe in your hips, you can have fat in your belly, a belly flap, whatever you want to call it, right? But what actually is dangerous for your health is how much fat is around your organs. It's called visceral fat. So how much fat is inside you and are surrounding your actual organs. That is the amount, that is the fat that actually creates health issues. So again, somebody might seem fairly normal on the outside, have a lot of visceral fat around their organs, and still be sick. That they find that a lot in people who are Asian. So people who are Asian tend to have lower BMIs, but they have their risk of diabetes and heart disease happens even with lower BMIs because you're not seeing it physically in the weight distribution on the outside. It's internal around the organs. So they were looking at that and waist circumference. So if they look at internal fat and waist circumference and body fat percentage by DEXA scan, that gives you the real information about how healthy a person's body is, where the BMI fails miserably. All right. So that's one issue. Now, you might have heard recently that there was a study that everybody got very excited about, and my husband and I went, oh no, this is going to be bad. There was a study where they found, don't listen to me to the end, okay? They found that people with lower BMI do not have any health benefits over people with higher BMI, that higher BMI people who weighed more were having just as long a quality life, or just as long a life, if not longer, than some people with low BMI. The problem with this study is they did not control for disease. So some people, like myself, have a low BMI, low weight because we're healthy. I eat a high raw plant-based diet. I exercise every day. So I have low body fat and I'm very healthy. But another reason people can have a low BMI or be thin is because they have cancer, or because they're a smoker, or because they use drugs that make that, like cocaine, right? So they did not actually separate out people who were sick or drug users or smokers. They just lumped all the skinny people together. And if you do that, because we live in a society, at least I do in the US, if we live in a society where people tend to be bigger, overweight, unless they happen to be sick. There's less people who are thin because they're very fit and healthy. A lot of people are actually thin because they're sick. So they redid the study recently, and what they did was they took out anybody who had pre-existing health conditions and smokers and drug users, and they found definitely people with low BMI who are not sick and who are not smokers actually have much longer lifespans than people who are obese. So it's just one of those things where, in general, the BMI measurement is just not very useful. And the reason I bring this up is because I see a lot of people making very dangerous decisions about their health based off of BMI. So, for example, I at least one client a day in my wellness practice. Now I have an international practice, so I'm seeing people from all over the world. At least one person a day from somewhere in the world will tell me, I want to get healthy, but I can't afford to lose more weight. My doctor says my BMI, I can't afford to lose any weight because of this number. And I have to undo all of this damage that their doctor did by talking about their BMI, because what their doctor is saying is you should drink these shakes that have chemicals and dairy in them so that we can raise your weight. You should eat more meat. You should, whatever it is, do whatever it is you can to gain more weight. And what they're doing is they're making them sicker so that they can feel better, that this one number looks better. So yes, the scale is up, but now your health is down. So we can't make decisions based off of a BMI. We can't make decisions based off the scale. We have to make decisions based off your health. If you are sick, you need to do whatever it takes to get healthy, right? The Goodbye Lupus protocol, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol, even hypernourishment, all of that will create a faster metabolism, but a faster metabolism will make your body able to repair damage and get healthy quicker. That is what you need if you're sick. And if that means you burn a little extra fat off your body and your scale goes down a little bit, okay, that's what your body did to get healthy. When I was on chemotherapy, so at 16, I had to do 2 years of chemotherapy to save my kidneys from lupus, right? So on chemotherapy, I threw up a lot, and I was very, very sick, right? I had active lupus, I had kidney failure, I was taking 7 pills a day, and I was doing chemotherapy. So when I graduated high school at 18, I'd been on chemo for 2 years. I was 99 pounds. I think I just hit 100 pounds at the end of the school year at 18. And just so you know, I'm 5'9" tall. So as a tall person, I was very, very thin, and I was extremely sick, right? Now, that is different than, all right, now I gained weight later. and I got up to like 140 pounds after chemo. And then they were also suppressing puberty for me because of the chemotherapy. So when they took me off of the hormone suppression and they take me off the chemo and I started eating again, I gained weight up to about 140 pounds. Curvy, everything filled in, right? But still lupus, and developed more complications like getting blood clots later, right? So I gained weight and everyone thought I looked better. My grandmother was so happy. Holocaust survivor, you know, skinny always scared her. I looked better physically, but I was still extremely ill. Now, I have lost a ton of that weight when I got healthy back almost 18 years ago now. When I got healthy, eating all of these raw foods on the Goodbye Lupus protocol, I lost that weight that I didn't want anymore and got to a low BMI, but I have no health problems. So here I am now where I'm not as thin as I was on chemotherapy, but I still have a low BMI and I have zero health problems. I have no blood clots. I have no arthritis. I have normal kidneys. I have normal colonoscopy. I have normal everything, right? So in my mid 40s, I guess I'm in kind of late 40s now, 46, right? So over the hump, right? But here I am with zero health problems and I'm thin. So it's why you have that low BMI matters more than the number itself. So if it's low because you're on chemotherapy or you have cancer or you have some other disease making you sick, gastroparesis or something, or Crohn's, you are thin because you are sick, right? But that doesn't mean we're going to fatten you up first and then get you healthy. We're going to still put you on the same protocol to get you healthy, and then you will naturally put on the weight your body needs. And it will still be on the lower BMI end because that is healthier. Obviously, this is my healthy weight because I'm healthy. And that's where I think medicine needs to move to, is evaluate the human in front of you. And why is their weight high? Why is their weight low? What are they doing? If they are a fit athlete feeling amazing with a low BMI, applaud for them, right? If they are a bodybuilder who's eating a plant-based diet, so their heart is clear and their blood pressure is low, but their BMI is high because of all that muscle, applaud for them, right? But if they're low BMI because they're smoking cigarettes, now we got a problem, right? If there's no reason why, because they're eating terribly, we got to look for cancer. So we have to start looking at the actual person and stop using these shortcuts. And I think that's what's happened in Western medicine, is because doctors spend so little time with people, they're using shortcuts. They're looking at some labs, they're looking at a BMI, and they're telling you what's wrong and sending you out the door with a prescription, and they're not actually looking at the health of the person in front of them. So it's why I've always buck the system, and I've, my appointments are 75 minutes, because if I get to know a person, I can give real advice on what they need to do. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I know in every Q&A, there's going to be someone who says, you might have already typed the question, I can't afford to lose any weight. And I want to make sure that we're answering the right problem. Tell me about your health condition. Let's talk about what it takes to get better. But let's stop talking about a number on a scale and trying to evaluate your health or your potential for recovery based off that number. All right, rant over. That is my lesson of the day. Let's get to questions people have. Remember, this can't substitute for medical advice and all that good stuff, because I can't see you. I don't have a relationship with you. But I'm going to give the best advice I can. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know. If I need to talk to you personally, I'll say that as well. But I'm here to help any way I can. The other good news I have for you is I put up my classes. So my online classes that have helped many people all over the world reverse their diseases without ever setting foot, not even setting foot, because everything's online now, but ever seeing me personally. These classes are fantastic. Lifetime access to them is like $47, but they're free on my website right now. So if you go to goodbyelupus.com, they are free online till Monday if you want to sit your butt down and learn how to do what it takes to get healthy. So it's all about hypernourishment. It's basically all the information from my book, Goodbye Lupus, but you can sit and listen. So if you like to listen to me talk, you probably do if you're listening to me right now. If not, you probably shut me off already. But if you like that, if you prefer that over sitting and reading it, then that is, it's right there on my website, goodbyelupus.com. I also have dozens of cases there of people who have reversed their disease at the time of making that. I have so much more that happens every day. It's hard to even tell you guys. Like today, Just today, had a text from someone who no longer has Graves' disease and will not have to get radiation on her thyroid because she participated in my rapid recovery group and her numbers are all normal again. And another person who had a relapse of testicular cancer, and he had active lymph nodes along his spine, and he was not going to go back to chemo, and his measurements of his lymph nodes went from 2 point something to 0.8, just in nutrition alone, the size of those lymph nodes. So now they're going to just watch and wait rather than recommend treatment. And all he did was a goodbye autoimmune disease protocol. I see results like this every single day. I just don't have time to air them because I'm working from early in the morning until nighttime helping people recover. But I want to make sure you take action. So if you haven't taken action because you hate to read and you need to sit and listen to the classes, take action. It works. And the reason I put this information out there is because I want you to use it and get better. And I don't want you to waste time. So I always put a time limiter on it to force you into the seat to watch it. Don't put it off. All right, let's get to your questions. All right, let's see here. All right, so I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to say it's Eminem something on YouTube. Is flaxseed oil a good way to get omega-3 into the body? How many milliliters or tablespoons are needed in a healing smoothie? Okay, flaxseed oil is actually a really great way to do it. So flaxseed oil is concentrated, so as long as it's cold pressed and it's refrigerated, because omega-3s are sensitive to heat oxidation as well as air oxidation. So if you keep it refrigerated and sealed up tight and it's cold pressed, then 2 to 3 tablespoons is great. You will get full hypernourishment doing that. And a lot of people prefer the flax oil because flax and chia seeds, one, they make the smoothies very thick, and 2, they are so full of undigestible fiber that a lot of people feel extra bloated with them. But the flaxseed oil is tolerated a lot better. It's just more expensive. It's like $40 to $50 for a big ball of flax oil versus like $1.29 a pound for the seeds. So price-wise, the flax oil is not as good, but tolerability-wise, people do a lot better on it. They like it better. All right. Let's see here. And Elaine wants to know, will the protocol cure leaky gut syndrome? So yeah, leaky gut, it's just another term that they are now using to describe the whole process of having, an unhealthy digestive tract, which is going to come from an unhealthy diet, right? So what I found is that while I'm never specifically targeting, let's fix leaky gut, the folks who do my protocol who also carry this diagnosis, they all recover. So obviously it's getting better. Now, whether the gut gets better because they are healthier all along, or do they get healthier because it repairs the gut, doesn't really matter as long as they're getting better. All right, let's check out the Facebook side of things. Let's see. Some of you guys just write really nice things, so you'll see me smile as I see that. All right. So Shamuga Priya says, my elder daughter's ANA is positive, taking medicine. I'm worried about my younger one who eczema and underarms since infancy and on and off, 12 years old. Her left incisor didn't come in and stuck the inside of the gums, and just advised for dental procedures to make it come out. I'm scared about it. Please advise me. I'm not sure I fully understand the question. If you're asking me whether or not your daughter should get her dental procedure, I'm the wrong person to ask because I'm not her dentist. I'm not a dental person, but I would go to a dentist you trust for that advice. So if she has an impacted tooth and it could be causing an infection or something, you're going to have to do something. So you want to go to the right specialist to answer that. So I don't have the answer for that. But for eczema, make sure that you are adding hypernourishment to a plant-based diet, take out all dairy, make sure that you're doing everything you can to keep those kids healthy. All right, let's see. Let's see here. Okay. And Taste and See by Dacia. This one doesn't really apply to most people, so I'm just going to tell you that, I'm not sure because I don't have enough information about the case and what the fatty acid metabolism issue is. So let me just keep going on that. I'd be interested in hearing more from you, though, if you want to contact me privately. Let's see here. One more Facebook one. Let's see. Okay, so Amy wants to know, what do you do if you have chronic fatigue, losing hair, have night sweats, but all tests come back negative? Been tested for lupus, no, it's negative. How do you get to the bottom of symptoms when you have tons of blood tests that are normal and you've seen every type of specialist? This is a common problem, Amy, that people will have with really all autoimmune, especially type diseases, that it often starts with symptoms and normal labs. And studies have shown that the average person, let's say with lupus, for example, was undiagnosed for about 5 years because it takes time before the vague symptoms also then are accompanied by things like positive antibodies. So oftentimes people will have fevers, or they will have fatigue or achiness, and their labs still look fine. And so the doctor will frustratingly tell the person you're fine, when that's not necessarily the case, right? If you're fine, you don't feel like garbage. So I never will tell someone they're fine just because a lab test says that. I just say, I don't know what it is yet, and let's work together to figure it out. It may be that you are in a prodromal phase of developing something like an autoimmune disease. It may not be. I mean, people have those same symptoms from COVID. People have those same symptoms from even from things like stress. So the good news is when you're trying to change your lifestyle and the way you eat, you don't need a diagnosis to do that. So I've had many people, including physicians, who were frustrated that even as a doctor themselves and their colleagues, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with them. That doing the protocol, especially like Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol, where you're taking into account your mental health and your activities and your sleep, that works for people regardless. Because again, the nutrition is specific for cellular repair, not for disease. So whether it's lupus or it's infectious or some other inflammatory condition, it will help your body repair the damage, whatever it is. And I just saw a physician today who gives talks on diet and other things, but he sends his family to me to solve problems because they have unusual issues in their family. And so his wife did my rapid recovery group, and she didn't have any of the symptoms she came in for. And so now I'm working with him on an issue, and I'm going to work with your kid on an issue that sometimes we don't have the answers for why something is happening or even the diagnosis, but we can repair damage. We can accelerate anti-inflammatory immune function. And that is all going to come from avoiding things that make you sicker, like inflammatory eating, stress, poor sleep, and optimizing the things that cause acceleration or repair, like hypernourishment and great sleep and good self-care. So start doing those things now, and maybe you'll feel better before you even get a diagnosis, which is even better. Why even get a diagnosis? Oh, thanks, Keith Leon. Good to see you. All right, let's see. Let's go to Instagram. Excuse the lean-in, Facebook and YouTube. For some reason, even though Instagram's by the same company as Facebook, I can't stream to it from a computer, only Facebook. It's weird, right? But hey, I'm happy for anything online where I can talk to you and help you out. So we won't complain. Here we go. Healthy, happy habits. How much nutritional yeast is too much? I like to have a cup. I don't know, because I've never tested that. So again, I don't like to make things up. If you are healthy and happy, as it says in your Instagram address, and you're having a cup a day, then I guess that's fine. If you're having an issue, then maybe not. So there's not really any great data on this. I have had people use it successfully for flavor. I mean, it is fortified with B vitamins, so some people use it for that. But truly, people eat it because it tastes good. It tastes cheesy. And, when you switch to a vegan diet or plant-based diet from the traditional standard diet, like many of us have, we're looking for that taste, right? So most of the folks I've seen do not have a problem. In fact, I can't even think of anyone that's had a problem with it. But sometimes if people are having issues with recovery and there might be a sensitivity, I might tell people to test taking it out. But if you're doing well on it, then that amount seems to be working for you. So that's really, I only want to start looking for answers when there's a problem already. Okay. Karina says, please talk about Hashimoto, but you're not telling me what, if you have a specific question about it, let me know. If you're asking me if we've reversed Hashimoto, it's the one we've reversed the most because it's one of the most common autoimmune diseases you'll see. All right. So 98 Pasteurator, do you only have to eat salads or smoothies all day on this protocol? The hypernourishing protocol is all raw. So most people will get in those ingredients, the cruciferous vegetables, the omega-3s from flax and chia. They usually get that in. The easiest way to get that in is through smoothies and salads, maybe chia pudding. There are people who make fancier foods. I mean, that's why I have the recipe book coming out, is because some people just refuse to just be simple and have it through smoothies, but they want to have things that are more exciting. And so I've been collecting recipes. And the cool thing about this book is that it's all recipes either from me or people who have graduated from rapid recovery and gotten results using those recipes. So literally those recipes save people's lives and reverse their diseases. It's pretty cool. I did not do the thing that most of the docs I know who publish books on recipes, they just hire a chef to do it. I wanted to make sure that anything in there actually healed somebody. So it's coming out. The designer is working on it. Just take a little longer than she told me, but I just harassed her recently. Like, come on, I told people this summer. But it is looking really good. It's coming out this summer. But you don't need to. You can. The way I got better was I literally drank the oil for my omega-3s and I ate broccoli and cauliflower and a bunch of other veggies and avocado. I do this because I dipped it in guacamole all day, and that worked, and my disease went away. And it's been away for almost 18 years now. But the hypernourishment piece is raw. So now, when adding hypernourishment, that doesn't really say anything about the rest of the food you eat, right? That's something you add to your diet. So adding smoothies and salads to your diet. For people who are trying to be aggressive, like the Goodbye Lupus protocol or Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol, then those people are eating only pure and high level intense hypernourishment until their symptoms are gone or whatever the milestone is they're looking for, whether it's a lab change or a symptom change. And then they step down into a more inclusive way of eating where they keep hypernourishment, but add back other things like nuts and seeds and cooked plant foods and things like that. Somebody asked me, what do you eat after 6 weeks? I don't want you to think in terms of like 6 weeks. That's just how long my group is. That has nothing to do with how long you do the Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol. You do it until you get your results. If you get the results in 2 weeks, great. You're ready for a step down. If you get it in 8 weeks, and that's when you do it. So, but that's an emergency protocol to get people healthy as quickly as humanly possible. And so that protocol is raw. And usually people do mostly smoothies and salads because it's easier, but you can make fancier raw dishes if you want to. All right, let's do one more here. And Vita 2013 said, hey, Dr. G, can autoimmune diseases cause rib pain? Potentially, costochondritis. So any itis, if you have a syndrome or symptom that ends in itis, that means inflammation in Latin. So most medical jargon is in Latin for some reason. It's just they kept it that way. And then doctors use it to make themselves sound smarter when, they're just saying you have inflammation. So costochondritis is usually what people have when they experience pain up in here. And so that is inflammation of the tissue between the ribs. That can happen with autoimmune diseases. That can happen from exercise. That can happen from, other inflammatory conditions. So it's not diagnostic that if you have rib pain, that it's autoimmune. Now, rib injuries like bruising, contusions or bruising or breakage, that can also cause rib pain. So if you have pain and you don't know why and it's not going away, it's a good time to talk to your doctor. Okay, let's see what's going on the YouTube side. All right, let's see here. Just scroll back down again. YouTube gets an advantage because it posts that the video is coming soon. And so for like 20 minutes before I come on, YouTube is just filling in questions. So again, same like software, but YouTube has the advantage there. Let's see. And Eminem, if you're looking for the omega-3 conversions to EPA and DHA, go to my free classes at goodbyelupus.com. I actually show the details of how that pathway works. So for those of you who love the science side of things, and science is amazing and fun, make sure you watch the classes. Okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, so Jamie's saying, hi, Dr. G, question, 86-year-old man, tested positive ANA speckle pattern. Labs say suspect for lupus, and Sjogren's PCP say it can happen in the elderly and can be inaccurate. Do you agree? So you don't want to use any lab test in isolation as a reason to create a treatment plan. So the question for me is, why did they test the ANA? So ANA can be positive in people without any signs or symptoms of autoimmune disease. There are a percentage of the population that will have a positive ANA without any signs and symptoms of autoimmune disease. So that is why we are told as physicians in our training, at least I was, to never test an ANA unless you already suspect autoimmune disease, because if it's positive, then what? Nowadays, unfortunately, a lot of people are being encouraged to get all sorts of lab tests just to see these big books of labs, and they're not specific to any disease that there's actually a suspicion of, and then they don't know what to do with all these lab tests. So if they tested an ANA, my question is why? And if they tested it because he was having arthritis, then that a positive ANA means, a positive ANA with arthritis means we should now test for rheumatoid factor and other markers for autoimmune diseases, right? So yes, I agree with your doctor that ANA by itself, that's not necessarily alarming, but the fact that they tested it, that makes me wonder why and whether or not he needs further workup and help. And even if he does, you already know what protocol to use because you're sitting here listening to me right now. So also the tests for ANA will give you a positive even when it's at levels that we don't consider to be problematic. So for example, an ANA test of 1 to 80 or 1 to 160 is still considered borderline or within the normal expectation for people without disease. But if you just get the lab test and look at the paper, it'll say it's positive because the lab detected it. But it's not positive in terms of this is very suspect for a disease. Usually you want to see it be 1 to 320 or higher before you would say that this is really more correlated with autoimmune disease. So ANA by itself, don't worry about that too much. That's also why I don't worry about it too much even with people who are reversing disease with me. If all your symptoms for lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or scleroderma or Sjogren's are gone and you still have a positive ANA, okay, so what? Right? Probably will get better over time, but even if it stayed positive, if you have no symptoms, it's something no one would have tested, right? So yeah, so that one by itself, I don't worry about it. Okay, let's see. Bob or Bobe, will this protocol help with nerve and muscle repair? Absolutely. So we've helped people with a lot of different nervous system disorders, from ALS, Parkinson's, chemotherapy-induced neuropathies, all sorts of different kinds of nervous system disorders have improved, especially in rapid recovery with us, where we're really focused on goodbye autoimmune disease protocol with supervision to optimize results, right? I've also had someone who had a stroke who was working with me in rapid recovery at the time he had the stroke. It was only on day 3, and it was caused by a cardiac catheterization that the doctor accidentally dislodged a blood clot and gave him a stroke. And 2 weeks into our program, he went to see the neurologist, and they said the amount of healing he had on his brain was equivalent to what they expect in 6 months, and it had only been 2 weeks. So for the nervous system and the brain, absolutely, it's going to help with repair and muscle repair as well. Again, this is a protocol specific to cellular repair. So we've also seen people get dramatic improvements in strengths with different kinds of myositis. What is itis? Inflammation, right? So there are people with myositis, muscle inflammation, right? So I'm going to decode the medical world for you, right? Myo is muscles and situs is inflammation, muscle inflammation, right? So people who have different types of myositis that can be caused by different illnesses, dermatomyositis, there's other types of myositis anyway, who have suddenly had a dramatic increase in their strength and ability to walk and move and not fall over because they were on rapid recovery and our goodbye autoimmune disease protocol, right? So for all across the board, again, you're looking at cellular repair. So it's always going to be the best thing you can do. And that's true for really any kind of acute damage. I mean, when people get surgeries on our plan, the surgeons every single time say months of healing have happened in a matter of weeks. And it's hard to understand for them because they don't understand the impact of nutrition on cellular repair. One day, I hope everybody does, but so far, not necessarily the case. All right, let's look at Facebook. Let's see. Scroll down Facebook. All right. Sorry. Okay. All right, here's a Facebook one. Eniola wants to know, what can I do with degenerative bone changes? So if your bones are getting weaker, the best thing you can do for bone density is you're going to do hypernourishment, plant-based eating, and resistance training. You need to do training for your muscles. As you increase your muscle strength, you will increase your bone density. Those two things must be done together. Okay. Let's see, Instagram. Let's see here. And if healthy, happy, if you can tolerate that much black soil without having an accident in your pants, go for it. Let me see here. Get to the next question. And Chanel, I don't know. Let's see. Okay. And ID Og. What do you say regarding people who have healed diseases with dyes? I'm guessing diets, like the carnivore diet. There's a few things. I mean, number one, any diet that's better than what you're doing before is going to improve your health, at least short term, right? So if you were eating a diet that was high in meat, but also high in dairy and processed junk food, right? And then you took out the processed food and you took out the dairy and only ate the meat, that's actually an improvement. And so people can have symptomatic improvements from just eliminating the things that were creating even more inflammation. So it's still an inflammatory diet because of the high animal product intake from the meat, but it's less inflammatory than it was with meat and dairy and processed junk. So that's one thing. It's not that the only way to bring down inflammation is to do the Goodbye Lupus protocol, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol. Any step you take in that direction is going to improve your symptoms. Now, the problem with doing something like the carnivore diet is that humans aren't carnivores. And in fact, when we have high intake of animal products, so high intake of meat, and as well as dairy and other things, you raise your risk of cancer. World Health Organization has, meat listed as carcinogen, right? That is the research done throughout the world, the consensus of scientists throughout the whole world, right? So that processed meats like hot dogs and turkey and bacon, hot dogs, bacon, processed meats like bologna, all that kind of stuff, they are in the same category of carcinogen as asbestos and cigarettes. And then all other meat is one category below it, mean likely carcinogens, but less evidence than processed meat, right? So you have an increased risk of cancer, increased risk of heart attack. It's going to make you more insulin resistant, although folks think that they're not insulin resistant on it because they're not eating any fruit anymore. But if they do, their markers get worse. I've had a lot of people who went to that diet and thought that they got rid of their diabetes, and then they ate a banana, goes through the roof, and we actually reversed the disease eating plant-based. So I'm always happy, first of all, for anyone who feels better with any diet that they choose. I am not trying to sell people on anything. That's why I do this work for free. That's why I'm with you right now for free. I'm not trying to sell people anything. I'm trying to save people's lives and help them live better and healthier and happier. And if you manage to do that with a less extreme program than I'm telling you to do, I'm so happy. So that's number one. If you switch your diet and it's a meat-based diet and you're doing better, I'm really happy for you. But I do want to caution you because of the risk. The other risk is to your kidneys. So eating meat and even eggs or animal products puts kidneys into hyperfiltration, and it causes extreme stress. I just saw someone last week who her doctor told her, well, she was looking into what should I do for autoimmune disease, and she found like the autoimmune paleo, which is not carnivore because there's still a lot of plant foods in it, a lot of vegetables in it, but it also included a high level of meat. And she was already eating plant-based and had maintained her kidney function at about 75% for years, eating a plant-based diet. That wasn't my diet, but just a plant-based diet. She had maintained kidney function at 75%, but still had symptoms of autoimmune disease, and she wanted to be better. And so she found these other doctors on the internet who said, you need to add in the meat, the free range, and it's going to help you. You got to do this autoimmune paleo diet. She added the meat in. She followed exactly what they told her to do. And she came to me with her kidney function, her GFR of 5. She lost over 70% of her kidney function because of the meat. And now I have to help her rebuild her kidneys because it's toxic. So if you are a healthy person, the toxicity to the kidneys happens over time. So I learned in medical school that over time, kidney function goes down with age. But what I found in my protocol is that's not the case, because I've worked with 80-something-year-olds whose kidney function went right back to normal once they got rid of all the animal products and did hypernourishment. So there are short-term results you can get with many different plans. And again, I celebrate any positive results people get, but there is an extremely high risk to your long-term health when you're eating an exclusively meat diet. It's just really dangerous for people in the long term. So I do caution people for that reason. But yeah, there's lots of things that can make you feel better, but not everything is optimal for your long-term health. I hope that helps. All right, let's see here. Okay, let's go over to the YouTube side of this. Oh, goodness. Crazy Farm Girl, it says, my 18-year-old son died a couple weeks ago. Can this prevent me from healing if I do everything else right? I can't stop the heart pain. It takes over my whole being. I'm so sorry to hear this. I don't have words to express the kind of pain that you must be in. I can't imagine a worse pain personally than losing one of my children. Sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. And what we do know is that being in mourning is one of the most inflammatory states that a human can be in. They've done studies that have found that people who are in mourning have inflammatory markers that are as high as you can see. And it's one of the reasons why we currently believe that people losing someone that they love is one of the triggers for autoimmune diseases. Constantly, at least once a week or so, I see someone whose symptoms started with the loss of somebody. So yes, especially if you already have disease, being in mourning can raise your inflammation. And that is not something you can do something about, right? I mean, you're going to be in mourning and this is going to hurt forever. It's going to hurt. The level of hurt will become more manageable in time, but if it's all consuming, that is normal. This is the kind of loss no one's meant to have. So what I've seen be helpful for people who are in mourning is what I teach people in general is that the higher your stress, the more perfect your diet needs to be to combat it. So if you are going through a state of intense mourning, then you want to be really on the Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol. You need high levels of nutrition. You need to avoid any further inflammation from diet, right? A lot of times when people are under high stress, when they're in mourning or having other stress, they go into alcohol and junk food to comfort themselves emotionally, and then they create even more inflammation in the body, and that can tip them over the edge. Excuse me, so the more stress you're under, the better you need your nutrition to be, the more you need to pay attention to things like sleep as much as possible, and the higher the level of self-care and support you need. So you need to lean on everybody, therapist, friends, family. You need to be held by people right now. I would hold you right now if I could. I'm holding you with my heart. But you need to use everything you can to keep your body as healthy as possible. Nutrition, emotional support, sleep, everything you can while you go through the healing process that's going to be necessary, because you can't change the inflammation from the stress right now. That's something that's going to take time. And if you don't have a therapist, I strongly recommend one, as much support as possible. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss. My heart goes out to you, as I'm sure everybody else's does too. Okay, let me see here. I can say that we've had at least 3 people I can think of go through who, while they were in my rapid recovery group, had somebody close to them die. It was mostly parents, but there was close friends, things like that. And no, 4 now that I can think of. And all of them, because they stuck with us, were able to still improve and recover their health in spite of the loss. But they all said if it wasn't for the group, they would never have taken care of themselves through the mourning period the way they did, because they knew we were checking on them every day. So you can mitigate the damage of the inflammation. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Sam says, I have a 6-year-old who's been diagnosed as autistic with limited verbal skills. Would one of your protocols work to help his current situation? We have actually had people with autism do our program because they also had autoimmune disease. And one did my group with his mom being the proxy for submitting his log and everything. And she said that not only did his rheumatoid arthritis go away, but his autism improved dramatically, and he was much more verbal and communicative with them being on that plan. Now, that's an extreme plan, and oftentimes people with autism have a lot of resistance to eating different kinds of food. But I would say at minimum, avoid any kind of inflammatory eating, stick with plant-based eating, and bring in things like smoothies and raw foods that he's willing, in whatever form he's willing to consume them. His, you said his. So in any way he's willing to consume them to try to give him the best shot. I mean, listen, nourishment affects everything, including our brain function. So it's definitely something to do. Okay, let's see here. All right, Facebook. Okay. Facebook, I had my thyroid removed from cancer. Is Goodbye Lupus protocol fine for me, or should anything be changed? Yeah, absolutely. You can still do it in its normal form. Naomi wants to know, any reason why a smoothie is better than a cold pressed juice option? So many reasons, Naomi, so many reasons. So juice is really a way of hydrating yourself. You're getting some hydration, a little bit of vitamins, a little bit of blood sugar, not too much going on there. The smoothie is really my way of helping people get the vegetables and omega-3s in, and a lot of the water that they wouldn't normally eat otherwise. So I'm taking, all of these vegetables and the omega-3s and the water, and we're putting it in the blender with some fruit for flavor so that people will consume it. If you stick a straw in it, then even people who don't like veggies tend to be willing to consume it. Whereas if I put it in their plate with a fork, they might not. So the smoothie is just a delivery system for the vegetables. And it's still a whole food when you eat it that way. Really, juice is processed, but it's not inflammatory. So we don't call it a processed food because it's not inflammatory. But you are processing it. You're pulling out the water, the liquid, and you're leaving behind the fiber. And the majority, even though fruit already has lower mineral content than vegetables, because minerals come from soil and fruit are usually pretty far away from the soil, whatever mineral content there was in the skin. So you've lost the fiber, you've lost mineral content, you're really not getting too much out of it. So the smoothie is going to give you the impact. You can't hyper-nourish with juice. You can only hyper-nourish with the smoothie because you need the intact whole food. You're not taking anything out of it. You're just pre-digesting it a bit so that it's easier for you to get it all down. So that's all. Instagram. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. If you eat this way and lift weights, can you still build muscle while reversing disease, or is it just fat melting away? Yeah, you can build strength and tone. You just won't gain weight to build size. Okay, let's see here. Okay, DKGW7, cryptic. Do you think postmenopausal women can get enough protein from plants to support bone health? How many grams of protein do you think I should eat? 59, 135 pounds. I have great news for you. You don't have to calculate your macronutrients for health. It's just, it's disproven. It's unnecessary. So what you need to do is so if you do hypernourishment, you're going to get all the nutrients you need for optimal health. So unfortunately, even physicians, nutritionists, the information that they're teaching in schools now about nutrition is still old stuff, like from the 50s when they barely knew anything. And all the cutting edge stuff you got to find out from lectures and things. I've taught at conferences for doctors around the world to teach them, here's the truth about nutrition. Protein is just not something to be calculated for a person who's just trying to have health. So what you need to do is avoid animal products, right? Because, when people are focusing on protein, they tend to think more about eggs and meat and dairy. But if you eat that, that's going to make you sicker. And that's actually been shown to even be damaging for bones and bone loss. So what you want to do is eat a plant-based diet with hypernourishment and resistance training exercise, and you're going to have bone health. You will have enough protein for your health without ever having to calculate it. Okay. So no worries there. Okay. 98 Pastor Racer. Well, that sounds interesting. I'm trying to put on muscle and do the protocol as well. What's the best foods to eat on a daily basis? So it's really important to understand, and this is so my husband's book is Miracle Metabolism. And that is about how to create a fast metabolism that will help you build muscle or lose fat optimally as fast as possible, right? In a healthy way where you get to keep it because you have a fast metabolism, unlike the previous ways where you could cause damage to your health. And even in that, he says, if you are sick, then you need to do the Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol, right? So if you're on the protocol because you're trying to reverse a disease, then do the protocol fully. Do the Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol and do muscle strength training exercise. So you can do all the bodybuilding you want. You can do interval training, all of that. You can do resistance training, all of that. And as I just mentioned, you will build strength, you will build tone. You just won't gain size, like mass, right? So you'll still look slim, but if you, wear a tank top, you got the muscles, right? You got the abs. So if you're trying to get healthy, you do the Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol. Now, if you're already healthy and you want to focus on bodybuilding, then I would switch you to Miracle Metabolism, which is my husband Thomas Tadlock's book. And so what you do is you'd still do all the hypernourishment to keep the metabolic rate high, but you're going to add more of the other plant-based foods, like adding more tofu and quinoa and other grains and things like that, so that you can gain weight while minimizing inflammation. But the thing is, in order to gain weight, whether it's muscle or fat, you have to create some inflammation. And so we don't want you to create inflammation while trying to reverse a disease. So you stick with Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol and do the resistance training to get stronger. And then when you're healthy, then your body can tolerate the little bit of inflammation that might be caused by adding other foods back that can stimulate weight gain. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's see the time. All right, let's go back to YouTube. Okay. All right. Jenny says, I've been adding black sesame seeds for some with autoimmune disease for calcium, but is it too much omega-6? It could. I have not studied these black sesame seeds, but sesame seeds are high in omega-6, and you don't need to add calcium to a green smoothie because the highest levels of calcium come from things like kale and broccoli and other cruciferous vegetables. So there's no reason to add anything for calcium when you're hypernourishing. Remember, hypernourishment is an overdose in nutrition. Vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, oh my, right? So you don't need to add other things to try to force that up. You're already getting everything you need. So don't add the sesame seeds. Okay. And let's see here. Elena wants to know if the smoothies can help a husband raise low testosterone. Potentially, it depends on the cause of the testosterone issue, and I don't know what it is. But if there's an inflammatory component, if there's a malnourishment component, it can only help the process. But I might need to know more personally with him to give more advice on that. Yes, Jordan, it's helped with myasthenia gravis. I'm seeing if I can rapid fire some of these. Okay. Alice, yes, the Vitamix blender does grind up the flax and chia efficiently enough for your smoothies. Okay, and one more from Maria. My husband is very worried that all I'm eating is green smoothies and it's not enough to live on. Should I be eating onions, garlic, quinoa, beans, or is a smoothie enough? I've done all 6 steps. So it's interesting. People who were never worried about you eating burgers and fries are suddenly really worried about you eating all this salad and smoothies. So sometimes I just need to ask them, like, what is it that you're worried about? And if they're saying, I'm worried that they're malnourished, I could say, well, hypernourishment is the opposite of malnourished. She's super, super nourished, right? But you do need to make sure you're eating enough, right? So if that's all that you're eating, which is totally fine. I mean, that Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol that's all people are eating until their body is as healthy as possible, right? And then step down later because you're able to relax because you got your results, right? So if there wasn't enough nourishment in eating that way, then nobody would have their disease reversed on my program, right? They'd get sicker, not healthier. But the fact is, they are vibrantly healthy by eating that way. So if there are specifics that your husband's worried about, maybe you can address them. You know, like, are you worried about, you know, my protein or whatever, this or that? Well, here's information about that. I can get a blood test and show that's normal. Are you worried about this? Like, you can show it. Also, if you're feeling better, then that's great news too. You can be like, I actually feel amazing. And that's a good sign. Bodies don't feel amazing when they're malnourished, right? But if you're worried that you're not eating enough of the hypernourishment foods, that's one thing. We have to make sure you're getting enough nutrition. But it's not like adding onions, quinoa, and beans adds nutrition to your diet. It doesn't. You're actually taking away belly space from adding more of the foods that'll help you recover. So you didn't give me the reason you're doing all this, but you know, once you are symptom free or you've hit your goal, then you can add all of those things back one at a time, and you should be able to maintain the results that you have. The Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol is not a forever protocol, although there are people who stay on it for months at a time because they feel really good on it. It does feel amazing once you get past detox and other issues. The energy level, everything, it's really nice. But it is meant to give you that emergency rapid speed to the destination of health. And then you don't have to stay that strict. You can keep the hypernourishment and add back in the other foods you mentioned to maintain good health. Okay. And then Angelita says, my urine is slight green color. Am I not absorbing anything? No, I mean, that can happen from eating high green food intake. It can also happen from things like nutritional yeast. B vitamins make your urine a bit yellow, or more bright greenish yellow. So all those things. Okay. See if I can rapid fire some Facebook ones, and then we'll rapid fire some Instagram, and then we'll call it. So let's see here. Let's see. Okay. Francesca. Hi, Francesca. You know, you can text me. Since thyroid panel results change slowly, how's the best way to taper off thyroid medicine of Hashimoto's during rapid recovery? Do you go by symptoms? My endocrinologist is not interested in testing unless there are unusual symptoms. So usually you don't change your medicine without the unusual symptoms. So for folks that have Hashimoto's, for many people who work with me in rapid recovery, as you saw personally, their thyroid function comes up even during the first 6 weeks. And how do we know? Usually it's because they become symptomatic. So they're taking thyroid medicine and suddenly they feel jittery, anxious, diarrhea, just sweaty, terrible. And I'll go, oh, sounds like your thyroid just came back online. Get the testing done, and sure enough, the TSH is low. And then the doctors will go, okay, it makes sense for us to lower the medicines. So typically people do not lower their thyroid medication as long as they're not having symptoms. Now, if you think that you might be improving and you want to test that, you can get a thyroid panel. If your doctor doesn't want to do it, you can pay out of pocket. At least in the US, you can pay out of pocket to get labs done, but it might be kind of expensive. But if you feel suspicious of it and you want to test it, you always can. And sometimes your TSH will be suppressed without you feeling symptoms yet, and you might be able to bypass some of the feeling crappy. But some people, their thyroid is already pretty damaged and it doesn't come online, at least initially. I think I talked about it last week or the week before with someone that's had thyroid Hashimoto's for decades, and her antibodies were gone months ago, but she still needed the same dose of medicine. So we kind of shrugged it up. We said, all right, goodbye Hashimoto's, no more destruction, but still take the medicine because you still need it. And then a couple months ago, she thought she had a flu or something because she started losing weight and feeling anxious and just unwell. And then she went to the doctor and her TSH was super suppressed. It was like 0.2. They went, whoa, after decades, your thyroid just suddenly started working again. It's like zombie thyroid. It just came back. And she's been doing my program for a year. Like, she's on hypernourishment now. She's not on the full protocol anymore, but she's doing hypernourishment, plant-based eating, and it just restarted itself. So that might take time, but you can test it in the meantime if you want to track it and possibly avoid having those symptoms. But it is pretty normal, Francesca, for the doctors to not want to test things unless there's symptoms that justify it. That's pretty standard care. All right. Okay. Let's see. All right. And Amy, I did answer about myositis. There we go. David wants to know, can I put orange juice in my smoothies? If it's fresh, if you're squeezing an orange into the smoothie, okay, but not like the supermarket orange juice. No. Okay, let's see here. Ocean Breeze, can it help? Can hypernourishment help a full thickness rotator cuff tear? First of all, ouch. Oh, that sounds very painful. It will help in repair. Absolutely. It will help your body heal as fast as you possibly can. If it's full thickness, though, your doctors might want to reattach it so that it heals in the right way and fully connected. That's something that you have to lean into your doctors for. Now my shoulder hurts. I have high empathy, so when someone else gets an injury, I feel it in my own body. You guys like that? Okay. I hope you're feeling better soon, Ocean. Okay, and let's see. And let me see. Okay, Anna says, I have RA. I started drinking smoothies, 1 pound. I'm avoiding sugar, flours, and meat. Eat fish occasionally. After the first few weeks, my joints felt better, but 2 to 3 weeks later, my joints felt worse. I do housekeeping for a living. I'm around all these chemicals all the time. So if you are feeling better and then something turns and you feel worse, then I would actually ask you what changed then. So a lot of times people want to like right away blame their nutrition for anything going on. And often that's not the case. So if you were doing something and you were consistently getting better and better and better, and then suddenly you went worse, I want to know what happened around the time that you got worse. So was there a change in your work hours or your stress? Did you start eating more fish? Did you have something else going on in your life? Have you not been getting enough sleep? Look to see if there's anything you can pinpoint that triggered that decline, especially if there was, if there was no change in your diet, then look at the other lifestyle factors that could be getting in the way. Read Goodbye Autoimmune Disease to see if you can get extra help with that. If you did change your diet, well, then change it back and optimize, go full on into Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol so you can get yourself better the rest of the way, even if you're around chemicals. And let's see here. And Mary, opinion of quinoa and hypernutrition. If you're doing hypernourishment, quinoa can be part of your other foods that you eat. It's much better than something like rice. It doesn't cause weight gain. It doesn't cause inflammation. And then, do you believe intermittent fasting is useful for reversing insulin resistance? I mean, it really depends. Most folks who do my for my rapid recovery group, they no longer have insulin resistance, usually within 4 weeks, often sooner than that. So I don't see it being necessary. And with hypernourishment, we're trying to overdose in nutrition, and it's harder to do when you limit how much you eat. If you're trying to hypernourish in a short period amount of time, you're going to be really, really stuffed. So it's not necessary. For some folks, it's helpful just because it limits their food intake, and that's part of the reason that they struggle is because they're eating bad foods. But I haven't seen it be necessary. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right, and Monica says, I have a kidney stone 4x6, nearly half the size of my kidney. Wow, that is a huge stone. I'm on a catheter, lots of pus. I have surgery planned to remove that kidney. I'm vegan, but I'm not strong enough anymore to eat only raw because doctors don't give me hope from the very beginning. What wants to come out of my mouth, which sounds kind of sad, but it's the case here. Don't look to your doctors to give you the hope. You got to do whatever it takes to get yourself healthy. This is a conversation I had with one of my clients today that I was going to talk about as a lesson to the day, but the BMI just seemed more important, was that she, that all her doctors will say is you have something chronic and progressive. And so it's so hard for her to hold on to hope of recovery because all they say is chronic progressive. You're going to have this forever. You're going to get sicker. And I said, it's not because they're trying to be negative. It's what we're trained in. I mean, the first time I ever felt kind of sad or depressed about my disease was in medical school. because every chapter I read said people with lupus are more likely to have this. People with lupus are more likely to die from this. And I was like, I don't want any of this, right? So it's not something that in Western medicine is considered curable or reversible. Then we're taught to say that, to tell people that. But that doesn't mean there isn't hope. It means that your doctors don't know how to fix it. So if you need to get the kidney removed because you have this mass there that there's no other way to get rid of it, okay, but how are you going to optimize your recovery? Well, that's in your hands now to make sure that you are well nourished, that you're still getting exercise if you can in any way possible, that you deal with your stress, right? But don't look to them for hope in this area because they don't have it. All they can do is say, take this out, right? But if you're looking for hope, you got to look for the places where that's what they have, right? I was told from the age of 16 that I was dying. I'm 46 and I'm healthy, right? So doctors don't always know those answers, right? All they know is well, what they know, right? And so all they know how to do is remove this, right? But they don't know how to improve or increase health. That's not what we're trained to do as physicians. This is my life's work, but it's not what I was trained to do as a doctor. I'm able to understand and explain it because I'm a doctor, but it wasn't what I was trained in. So don't look to them for that hope. Look to the people who can give it to you and take the best possible care you can of yourself. Okay, and what's the time? Oh, I'm over, but I promise Instagram the rapid fire, and you're going to get it because I never go back on my word. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so NAR 1960, I got acid reflux again a year after becoming plant-based. No gluten, dairy, eggs, meat, just fruit, kale, spinach, legumes, potatoes, salads, and dinner. Why? I don't know the answer to why you're having reflux. Could be how much you're eating. It could be when you're eating. Could be other things like caffeine intake. But without having a more complete story of like when it started and what was going on at the time, it's very hard for me to pinpoint it. But it's definitely not like plant-based caused reflux and meat-based doesn't, right? So there's something else that happened a year after. I'd be looking at details of what was going on when it started. Once it starts, it's hard to recover from because now you have an injury in your esophagus that's going to burn, and you might even need medications, other things to support you during that recovery. But I wish I could pinpoint it just looking at your diet, but I can't. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Ali Anajar, I'd like to hypernourish and I use chia and flax seeds, but it seems to make my hormonal acne worse. Why? What's the best omega-3 source for preventing hormonal acne from flaring? So long-term, what we find is that the acne goes away, but it might be that when you first start, that could be part of your detox symptom. Sometimes skin issues can kind of seem like they're flaring before they retreat. So one, I would stick with it, but if you want to use an omega-3 source that has zero impact on hormones, use chia seeds or filtered flaxseed oil. Flax seeds actually are, they help suppress estrogen. They're phytoestrogen, so they actually protect us from overdose of estrogen, which can be dangerous for things like breast cancer or other things. But if you find that that bothers you, for most people, that's going to be really big benefit, by the way. But you could always just try using chia instead. But it might just be that that's kind of part of your detox process. And on the other side of it is going to be better skin that you're looking for. Okay, let's see what else I can pump out of here. Okay, let's see. And then, God, healthy habits. You're like a fast typer. You get so many questions in. Says, when you say you reverse stage 4 kidney disease, what does that mean? Does it mean you have no kidney scarring and your function back to 100%? Yes. There is no sign of any damage. There's no more protein in my urine. My kidney function is perfectly normal. Yeah, there's no sign. You could never detect that anything ever happened to me, which is still amazing to me to this very day. Okay. And I had protein in my urine. So, I did use chemotherapy, steroids, lots of medicine to get myself stable. But I had protein in my urine for 12 years until I changed my diet. And then it disappeared within the 3 months that I changed my diet, and it's never returned. So I had chronic issues that completely healed. Okay. Jacqueline, I'm type 2 diabetic. I stopped eating meat. Won't the carbs make my diabetes worse? Not sure what to eat. I need substance to exercise or else I get dizzy. Okay, so watch my video on type 2 diabetes. There's a video that I did. It's probably easier to find it on YouTube because you can search it more easily. But absolutely, so the cause of type 2 diabetes is actually insulin resistance from saturated fats, oils, all those things clogging your insulin receptors. So when you stop eating animal fats, so meat, dairy, processed foods, oils, and you eat a hyper-nourishing plant-based diet. So if you do eat something cooked, it's quinoa, cooked vegetables, things like that, your insulin resistance will go away rather quickly. If you do the Goodbye Autoimmune Disease protocol, usually insulin resistance is gone within the month. People's A1Cs drop really rapidly on that program. So eat to fullness, but in the beginning, you're going to maybe not feel as satisfied because you're used to the denser foods. But if you're eating to fullness and you're sticking with the plan, your body will get healthier. It's not carbohydrate mediated, it's fat mediated. Okay, and one more time. One more question, let's see. Okay, Tiffany says, Dr. G, how do you know if your numbers are going down and you're able to stop taking your medicine when you're still taking it? So it's a common question. Like if I'm taking medication and then I add the diet and then I get better, how do I know what it's from and whether or not it can be off medicine? Well, one is usually people who see me, they've already been on medicine for a while and they still have chronic issues. And then they add the diet and those chronic issues go away. So we know that it's nutrition based. If you did them both at the same time, maybe you don't know. But usually what you would do, and you would work with your doctor on this, is if you are in remission, your numbers are great, you know you're eating well, and you're feeling good, then you talk to your doctor and say, hey, I want to minimize my need for medicine while I'm in remission. I think my diet's really supporting this. I would like your help in tapering this. And if you're on injectables, sometimes they'll just space it out, like add an extra week, 2 weeks, and kind of see that. If you're taking pills, they can help you with the taper. You have to be very careful with medicines. That's why I don't tell people to just stop them, because withdrawal from medicines can cause problems too. So you talk to your doctor and let them know this. And what I did with my doctor when I was ready to come off medicine is I said, listen, I don't want to die. I want to be healthy. I just don't want to take medicine if I don't need it. But if I have any symptoms return, I'll be right back in your office to restart, so that they know that you're not trying to be rash, but you want to minimize. And so that's how you would normally do it. Okay, everybody, I stayed on late, but I have more folks to see, so I have to go. But I hope that this helped you. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Remember, if you go to goodbyelupus.com right now, you can watch my classes. You don't have to read Goodbye Lupus. You can sit back, enjoy the show, and learn how to get healthy. Do it this weekend, because it's from now till Monday. So you have time to learn it, watch all of it, watch some case studies, get inspired, and whatever you do, start taking some action right now. There is hope. There is recovery. You can get your body healthier. You can live a better life. You're the only one who can make it happen. So I hope this helps you. And I guess I will see you, or maybe not. Hopefully I will see you next time. Tell your friends. Have a great rest of your week. All right, let's end this here.